Hello, everybody. Welcome to Woodworking Wisdom. And today, so not for before we go any further, not a turning day today. This is going to be an epoxy resin day, which is one of my favorites. I really like epoxy resin. We have Steph on the cameras and doing all the questions, all the trickery, all the usual things that Steph does amongst turning, of course. So, yes. Hi, Steph. We were just having a conversation about the wonderful colors that we get from Entropy resins. So this is the resin, the Entropy resin. We've got some cool camera angles for you as well to see today. So really nice one. So Entropy resin, the hardener, which we'll talk about in a moment, and then the range of colors. I've got two particular large packs of colors here. This is the Eclipse. All right.
Yeah, I'll get there in a minute.
Were we not on sound or anything? Are we okay?
No, I'm just not sure where the cameras are today. Different rooms.
Different, so. Okay. So two different. These are the opaque colours, so the non-see-through. So I've got white caps and Eclipse. I'll leave you to guess which is black and which is white. Okay. Just to start with. However, I have a pack of colours here, which we are a fairly recent thing for us. So we're doing elemental colors, and in that elemental colors I do already have a white caps and an Eclipse in smaller bottles, so we're going to go with those for this demonstration today. Like I'm going to talk about the colors because somebody is sat at Entropy Resins making up these wonderful color names. So apart from white caps and Eclipse, I've got a berry red, fairly common, celestial blue, lovely, bumblebee, and you're going to guess, like I say, the colors that come out from this. And my favorite clover patch. Depends on where you are in the world or how you say that to make it sound better than others. But being down here in Devon, clover patch seems right proper, isn't it?
Not bad at all.
To link in with this month's Make It in March. If you're watching it live, you might be watching it in the middle of the summer, then Make It in March is pretty irrelevant and it's gone. But if you're into Make It in March, if you have ever seen or taken part in Make It in March, it's all about what our viewers are making at the moment. And it's supposed to be at the moment rather than a historic thing. But the theme this year is the seaside, the beach, the ocean, all those sorts of things together, similar sort of thing. And so we've been experimenting and playing with resin and the effects that you can get, or the seaside effects you can get with it. If you look to my left, this is a clock project that we're in the middle of making at the moment. So there will be a hole in the middle by tomorrow. There will be hands on there, and there will be 4 numbers. So we're going to have 12. We're going to have 3, 6, 9, and 12. So that you'll see as a blog. I think that's right, Steph, isn't it? It's going to be.
Yeah, it should be coming out as a blog and a short video.
Lovely. And then here I'm just doing some patches, some swatches really. This is a birch face ply, not an overly expensive one, just a bit of a packing crate, but you can get the model maker's birch face ply, which works really, really well. Really only is pale timber just to mimic the sand. That's all. That's the reason that I've used this. All sorts of options that you've got when making these, when mixing these. If you seal the ends, is this the one with it on? Yeah. So you can see if you seal the ends with tape, this works really well to then peel off, so you don't get the horrible gunk down the sides here. So that's a nice tip to employ if you want to. My thought was we're going to sand it and paint the edges anyway, and I'll probably paint the edges white once it's all sanded back. So I wasn't overly worried, but you can do that if you want to keep it just the timber. So the aim of this project, or the aim of today's demonstration, really is to show you how to get this effect. But this is your session. I want you to ask questions on resin, whether that's casting, whether it's countertop like we're doing here, whether it's resin art. Just ask me questions. If I know the answers, obviously I'm going to give you them. If I don't, then email the questions in and we'll do a bit of research and we'll try and find out for you, really. It's the only way I get to do cool things like this is researching and the questions that you ask. So yeah, we're gonna start. There's a little bit of drying time involved in this, or there should be a little bit of drying time involved in this. The effect that we've got here really works well if you've got the resin starting to set. In terms of countertop resin, there's a fast hardener that you use instead of the main slow hardener that you would use for casting. And so fast hardener, the name gives it away, it's a little bit quicker. So usually we wait about 20 minutes before we try and get the effect that we want. So before we add the white to the blue, for instance, to get that waveform, we wait 20 minutes just for it to start getting a little bit sticky before we move on. So I'm going to stop talking in a minute. I'm going to get to cast the first bit, and then we can maybe take some questions. And whilst I pad out for time, for drying time and everything like that. Have we got anything to ask before I start?
No questions at the moment.
We're
But
good.
let's get them coming in, guys.
Yeah. So if you can bear with me just for a minute, keep that burning question to yourself. Otherwise, if you ask it now, it's going to get lost in the ether of chat, I would have thought. So just wait until I've done the first bit of casting or mixing, sorry, and then start firing those questions. Please, anything resin based, whether that vacuum, pressure, casting big chunks, anything like that. If you got any questions, just fill them in a moment. So let's start. So this particular resin, the entropy resin, has a fast hardener because this is what we refer to as countertop or coating resin. If you wanted to cast, you buy the same resin, but you buy a slow hardener. Okay, so it's really quite a simple way of working. You don't have to get different resins. So one resin, different hardeners. I've got a mixing vessel here. I've got some smaller cups just to pour off some of the mixture into. And then I have my pigments, my colors. Most of the colors I have are transparent, but the black and the white, which are opaque. So the way it works is you can see the slight different color variation here. The more resin you add, the darker it gets. But even because it's transparent, even though you know if you add a lot of color, you still won't go completely opaque, like an opaque pigment will give you. The mixing ratio on these resins is 2 to 1, and that's 2 to 1 by volume as opposed to weight. So that's what we're going to work with here. So I'm going to put 300 mil of the resin in, and then I'll put a further 150 of the hardener in as well. I'm going to pour off a couple of separate mixtures once I've mixed it up. The reason I'm doing that, I want a small mixture to add with a white pigment. I want to keep a clear mixture for a clear coat on one of these, and then I'm going to mix the blue into the final one to do these other two stages. Now let me explain what we're doing here. I have a blank canvas, so that's going to be my first wave. I then have one that we done yesterday, first wave done, so I'm going to add a second wave onto this. And then this one here, this was cast a few days ago, and this is 3 waves in. I'm going to put a clear coat on top of that. So hopefully we can get all the stages there for you and all ready to go. Okay. Now, I don't have any gloves on me, so Steph has just reminded me, you forgot your gloves. So normally I like to wear gloves because this is gunky, sticky stuff. So I'm going to be extra careful today. I've got mixing sticks here as well to keep my fingers away as much as possible. So let's start the mix, and we can start a little bit of this curing as well. So we're going to have 300 milliliters of the resin. The resin tends to be a little bit gunkier, thicker than the actual hardener itself. This is going to feel like a huge amount of resin, but I didn't want to be short. 300. We got a lot to do. So let it settle down. 300. I'm going to put that to one side to give ourselves a little bit of space. This hardener is far thinner. It's gone slightly over 300, so we're going to have to go over the 150. So I'm going to go just a wee bit over the 150 mil. There we go.
I can hear the concentration then.
Oh, it's deafening, isn't it? The silence. don't even think I was breathing then. And then mix. So I've got a little mixing stick here. This is going to take a while. You don't want to rush this. You've got to make sure that this mixture is done really well. Take your time. Don't splash it anywhere, or try not to splash it anywhere. You will see a lot of bubbles in it, but for this process, actually, we want bubbles. It's the bubbles that help this capsulation go on. Okay, you see this really cool effect here. It's the bubbles that help us do that. All sorts of methods to clear those bubbles at the end, so don't worry, we'll have a look at that. I'm quite happy scraping the sides of any of these mixing vessels whilst mixing, but if you're transferring onto something or into a pot, don't mix the side walls of the mixing vessel. You might have little bits that haven't been mixed properly, so if you scrape them off, you've got unmixed resin and or hardener there as well. So absolutely scrape while mixing, but when you finish mixing and you're pouring in or onto the subject, don't scrape the sides of the vessel. Okay, I think we're almost there. Okay, we're good. Right, so I'm going to pour off an amount into my first cup. I want to keep these two clear for the minute, so let's pour from the same area. So this is going to be a clear coat for the last plaque. That's it. So decent amount in there. Then I'm doing a slightly smaller amount in here. This is just going to be the white. And that can go to one side. And then finally, the blue. So let's carry on mixing just for the minute. Going to add in the blue. So this is the celestial blue. Okay, and I'm going to put a decent amount in it. You can see the difference here, and I'm happy with both, if I'm honest with you. But from experience, with most pigments, you add a drop. Okay, this one you don't. This is a transparent, so I'm going to add a little bit more than that. Quite a dollop in there. Have a mix. See if it's what you want. It's looking quite good. Yeah, quite like that. Show the camera. You can see the color there. It's pretty nice. Oh, I like that. I might. Ooh, should I add a bit more? You can sort of see on the stick the sort of color that's coming out once thin. Let's go. Just go for a little bit more, I think. Now already I'm getting resin on my fingers. This is where the gloves should be.
Would you like to go and find you some?
No, I'm okay. I'm okay. I've got a decent amount of tissue here. Right, there we are. So let's mix the rest of that resin in. Now we're getting proper color. It's surprising once you put this on the pale timber, it really does make it clear a lot quicker. So there we go. That'll do us. Okay, that's the blue. I'm going to put that on now, and then we're going to mix the white up and let that settle a bit. So where I need to put the blue, This is my blank canvas. This is the first one I'm going to do. And then I'm going to put another wave on this one. And this is your chance to be artistic. Go wherever you want to. Make a wave shape if you want to. I found from experience, actually, that it all sort of settles back after a while. There we are. All right, now let's cover. So a decent amount all over. And we'll spread it out in a minute, so don't worry too much about you think you haven't covered everything. That's fine. It will naturally spread. There we are. That's that bit. Let's do another wave on here. Way. It's fun. It's like being back at primary school. I can actually paid to be doing this. It's brilliant.
It's like finger painting.
And literally, well, in a minute, it really will be like finger painting. So there we are. So that's covering. You can see it sort of squidging out to all those areas. Let's come a little bit further up this one. There we are. That's about all we're getting out of that one. Keep that out of the way. We can spread it around, or we can just leave it. You can just let it do its thing, you know, and let it find all these little areas or find all these gaps at the end. You can lift it up. Just lift it, let it naturally run. It's just fun. There we are, right on the corners. There we are. So we'll leave that for the minute. I'm not worried about where it can go wherever it wants to. Same on this one. If you want to use a stick just to dab it around, just to help capillary action work its magic, it will. Didn't know I had big words like that in my vocabulary. Oh, and another one.
No, it wasn't that. I know you've got a good vocabulary, Colwin. No, the gentleman with Turner, our good friend Mark, has asked if you're wearing a pinny.
It's an apron, Mark, not a penny. So I know it's mine because it's got my name on the inside. I think my mum put that there somewhere. Clear coat is still over there. That's fine. We're happy with that one. I'm just gonna mix a little bit of the white into this one so this can be starting to dry. I don't want to put this on there yet. At the moment, it's so liquid, it just sort of disperses. So I want to have that process of drying starting now. I want to get some tackiness into it. I'm gonna add a decent amount of white into my small amount here. So this is an opaque. So it is completely different to the transparent. Obviously, it's a thicker solution. The pigment's heavier.
It looks much thicker.
It is very much thicker. Just pop the lid on there just for the minute. I might need more in a mo. The usual rule when it comes to pigment is 6%, no greater than 6%. I can't measure 6% in this form, so where do you want me? Under this one. That's quite white. That's good. Same thing, remember, you're right to scrape the edges whilst you're doing this. In fact, in here it doesn't really matter because we've already mixed it. If you're doing a lot of resin mixing, there's a way of mixing with it. Uses 2 mixing cups. So you do your first mix, then you pour it without scraping the sides into your next mixer, and then finish mixing. Just to make sure every bit has been mixed up. There we are. That's quite a good white there, I think. That's a good one. So that can just stay to one side dry for a minute. Whilst all that's doing its magic and doing its drying, I'm just going to pop a clear coat on here. So if you've ever used a clear coat, if you've ever used a self-leveling compound on anything, and I'm just going to go over that with a cloth. Self-leveling compound, it does what it says it should do. It self-levels. So the lumps and bumps from the other 3 waves I've got here, because obviously the course gets thicker, that'll be hidden. This It's got a single coat of self-leveling over the top. There's 2 waves on that one. It's one level surface now, so it really does make a big difference as to the flatness that you get at the end. So let's pour our top coat, and I'm not worried about bubbles at all at this stage. If you've seen me do any casting before, bubbles can be used, but if we want to get rid of them, we can quite easily. It's not a biggie to get rid of them. I've just realized I'm quite close to the edge here, and I don't want this resin to go onto the floor. So let's pop that there. So I'm going to be fairly careful. So my clear coat over the top. There we are. Another one of my ice cream sticks. Oh, bit of muck on there. Where did that come from? So most of the time, if you suggest the direction it should go in, it'll follow. Use a bit of capillary. Once you've broken that surface tension, it'll follow its way to the edges. Right there, we'll give that a few minutes. Just let it bed out. It'll start filling all those little holes. And then we're going to give it a little bit of treatment. Any questions so far, Steph?
Why, yes, we do.
Bring us your questions now, everybody. Fill them, because I need to wait now, so we've got to pad things out for a little bit.
I've got to scroll back.
Okay.
Okay, I think Maria was the first one. Maria Wells is back.
Good to hear from you again, Maria.
That's lovely. First question from Maria. Could you use the coating type resin to seal a turned vase or goblet so that it could hold water?
So yes, I mean, I would probably draw the line at goblets and things like that, unless you had a particular. You'd have to check, I guess, the content to make sure it's actually food safe and stuff. But I can't see a problem. I know that the resin that we're using here is completely waterproof. So yeah, I can't see why that wouldn't work at all. Absolutely.
Lovely, good answer. Next up, we've got Jim B. He's asking, what's your opinion on hand mixing or mixing using a tool on a drill? Okay,
so I've got good experience with this, and positive and negative experience as well. So the only issue when using a drill, especially if you wind that speed up quite quickly, you get a massive amount of air bubbles in it. So you've got to deal with those air bubbles, or you use them. Now, I've made a couple of pieces where I've used the air bubbles in the finished piece, and it's been thick cast pieces, to let the light bounce off. They almost look like stars, and they really work with the light. But if you don't want that, you've got to use heat to get rid of them, to disperse them. If you disturb the resin as little as possible, you get fewer air bubbles. If you mix and leave to dry in a very cold or cool place, then you'll get those air bubbles rise and come out a lot better than you would in a very warm place as well. So it's just working with the air bubbles. Now, if you're going to use a powered mixer, that would be because you're using a lot of resin in a fairly thick casting. That means that there's no hope or way of using pressure to get rid of the bubbles. So you are relying on heat and the rise of those bubbles to get rid of them. So that would be the only issue for me is the air bubbles that will eventually create.
Is there any good method for determining how much you'll need for a given project like this?
Well, if you do the research online, they say about using rice to fill the voids and then measuring out the rice to get you quantities, which seems to be a good way. And again, there is an equation online which I did know at one point and keep forgetting, that you can work out your surface area to again turn that into milliliters. So again, look online, you can work that out. This is very much guesstimate for me, because it's also so, pardon pun, fluid, because every single one that we're going to do is very, very different to the next. And I would very, very much recommend you do a series of these rather than doing one at a time. Of course you do one at a time, it's not a problem. But if you do a series, then you get no waste, because you can have a big wave here, but you can have a small wave there if you're running out. It doesn't make any difference at all, because your next waves, you can pick up the slack sort of thing. So yeah, for these sorts of things, very much doesn't really matter. When you're doing thick castings, we know resin's quite expensive, so you need to be a little bit more precise there. So the rice trick works. And the rice over anything else, you say, well, why don't you use sand and stuff like that? It's because it's dust free. That's the other thing. You use your rice, and there's not going to leave a residue in there as well. Good airline is always a plus, just to get rid of any last minute bits of muck. And the heat buildup of curing resin will very much depend on the resin that you go for as well. So just be aware of that. If you cast too thick, you can get a huge amount of heat buildup, and I have had here castings fail because I've got it too hot, and quite scary when you see things start to smoke and bubble in front of you. You're waiting for them to burst into flames. Steph's laughing because it happened while she was watching me cast at one point. So you do have to be a little bit careful. I've made lots of mistakes. That's how I've learned over the years with these sorts of things. I'm trying a lot of new things to put them in front of you, and with that comes mistakes after mistake after mistake.
We make them so that everybody at home doesn't
have to.
Tony's also asked, how exact do you have to be with the ratio?
Very is the answer. Very. If you're not exact, you will not get that drying working at all. Some will require you to weigh the liquid, as opposed to measure it by volume, so it'll be measured by weight. And there's a few that I use which does require that, and that's just sort of suggesting to you that you have to be quite exact. But yeah, the better that ratio, then certainly the better curing is going to be. Yeah, just do it by the book, basically. They're all slightly different. Some, like I say, with volume, some will require weight.
Sounds good. So I'm just having a little scroll down. Callum's asked, is it worth pouring into another vessel after mixing to make sure, or a good scrape of the sides good enough?
No. So hi Callum. The every bit of advice when it comes to mixing is do the 2-pot mixing method. So you do your mix, you scrape the side, you mix, and once you think you're nearly there, then you pour it into your second mixing tub without scraping the sides. Then you remix in your second mixing tub. Okay, so just to ensure that none of that loose mixture is transferred over. So mix the final one, and then you should be ready to go. Yeah.
Perfect. Sorry, I've lost where the question was. Robert Richards has asked, what is the best solvent for removing resins off your hands?
Or what did we use the other day? It wasn't white spirit. It wasn't methylated spirits. Someone in the chat will tell us immediately, because they gave me the answer the other day. I can't remember what it was, I go to the bathroom and scrub my hands really aggressively with Swarfiga and an abrasive pad. But someone on the chat, answer that for us, please, because you did give me the answer the other day and I can't remember what it was. It'll come up in a minute if they're still there, if they're watching.
I'll check it out. Frederick's asked, have you ever tried this on a stretched canvas?
No, I haven't. No, and again, myself and Steph had this conversation the other day because the whiteness of the canvas would be really cool, and we were thinking of maybe epoxy and sand as well to create that sand area. I flame these to get rid of the bubbles, and that was the only conversation we had about the negative effects of canvas. Is how will it put up with the flaming? But you're going to see in a minute that it is literally just a breeze over the top. Can't do too much heat on it. The epoxy won't take it either. So no, but I really do want to, Frederick. I'm really keen to give that a go.
Lovely. And we've got another question from Callum again. Can you use any resin pigment, or do you have to use their colors? It
seems to me like every pigment works. If it's an epoxy pigment, it works. I've tried all sorts of mixtures now, different companies' pigments to different resins, and I haven't found one that doesn't work. But make sure it's an epoxy, because you can get all sorts of resins, and the pigments seem to be solely for one or the other. So polyester resin, for instance, has a different pigment than the epoxy resin will have. So be aware of that. And polyester resin is a much more pungent, usually for a coating resin, doesn't have a very strong bond onto other materials. So if you're doing river tables, for instance, it's always going to be an epoxy resin over polyester resin. So those are sorts of things. But most polyester resins I've come across are quite strong, where you need a full vapor mask and all those sorts of things. So yeah, be aware of that. So if it's designed for epoxy resin, I'm pretty much sure that you can cross brand with them. Yeah.
Perfect. Fuller's asked, how about using a UV curing resin?
Yeah, so the UV, I don't know what you found, Fuller, but I found that only the UV curing resins I found only in small quantities. So for making rings and things like that were brilliant. I haven't found one that you can do in large quantities for countertops or casting. That's the only thing. I'm guessing that's because of the speed of curing. And with UV, a lot of the time it's 10 to 20 seconds, isn't it? Once you add that UV light. So I would have thought that is only for small quantity resin, coatings and things like that, like jewelry making. I'm not sure whether that would work on here. I might be wrong. I don't know. But from experience. Yeah.
Perfect. Cliff has asked, are these products known to trigger any certain allergies?
Again, not that I've heard of, and I've done a lot of research with them. But I don't know for sure. So I would definitely check before you use, read all the labels and things like that. I haven't heard of anything, but I don't know for sure.
And Mark, Gentleman Woodturn, is asking if Super Spindle Steph has recovered from her experience with him yet. I have, Mark, and I'm ready for my next project.
Yeah, me and Jason have just pushed to one side now. That's it. I think it's when can we have Mark back?
Mark was a really good teacher. Sorry, Colwin.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, you are too.
Yeah.
He was more patient because he didn't know me so well. Callum's asked as well, do you have to use the suppliers? Oh, no, wait. I've already asked that. Mark said acetone. Is it acetone for removing resin?
Was it Mark's suggestion last time? If that works, brilliant. Fantastic.
Acetone is what you tend to use to get acrylic nails off. So
is it?
It is.
Oh,
I know that bit.
I'm saying nothing.
Not that I ever have known. No. Okay, I think that is everything. I'm sorry if I've missed anybody. Oh no, wait. Maria's asked, how long does it take to dry in an unheated workshop?
In an unheated workshop, until about 2 hours ago, this was an unheated workshop, wasn't it? The first wave on that one was done yesterday. It took, and when I come in today, it's still a bit tacky. So this is yesterday's. So my finger sticks to it. So it's still pliable. This is a cold workshop, this one. If this was a warm workshop, that would have been dry to touch. It wouldn't have been wet in any way at all. So I would say with a fast hardener, 24 to 36 hours would would be dry and ready. Well, certainly recoat after 24 hours, because even though that's tacky, that's good to recoat. There's no problem there. But if you want it touch dry, then a good in a cold workshop 36 hours, I reckon.
Cool. One more question just before you get going on your white bits. Jim B's asked what my next turning project's going to be. So I'm just going to say, Jim, we are open to suggestions. Whatever you guys want to challenge me with, I am up for having a go. And also, just to let you know that in 2 weeks' time, is it? Colwin's doing a Woodworking Wisdom takeover with what you guys want him to turn. So his challenge is that he has to turn as many things that you suggest in the hour. So feel free to send lots of emails of really difficult things to challenge Colwin with.
Maria, no weeble wobbles, no penguins, please.
Hey, one more penguin. There's no harm. But I'll let you get back to the white.
Thank you very much. That is really, I've said about this before. I love live because the jeopardy of it is really exciting. And so I'm really quite excited about that session because I don't know what we're going to be turning. I'm going to have loads of bits of timber ready, and we just turn whatever. Let's not even do it. Just come up with suggestions on the day. Don't even send them in. Otherwise, so no preparation at all.
Send a few in, but I mean, definitely come up with some on the spot.
Yeah, definitely, we got to do it. Okay, that'd be great fun. I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so just move that to one side. So we talked about bubbles. I don't know, Steph. Can we get bubbles? Can you see bubbles? Is there anything in there? Trust me, they're bubbles. So the way I'd get rid of those bubbles, we're going to a little bit of fire. Don't be, again, pardon the pun. Don't be alarmed. The fire alarm. Have we got one in this room?
We do.
It's over there. It's a way away.
Yeah,
but look, I'm not going to set fire to the thing. Look, it literally is. Done. And the bubbles just disappear. They popped. And now that is completely glass-like finish.
And see them
one
pop.
level. Did you?
Yeah.
Perfect. And one level. There's all those ridges have gone from those various waves. Completely clear. Gorgeous finish. Okay. Gorgeous.
The question is, whose wall is it going to go on later?
Do you know the amount of people that have asked for one of these? Izzy, the photographer, has just decorated her bathroom downstairs, she said, and she said, oh, a pair of them would be quite nice. That one there that we just...
Nicole wants one.
And Nicole as well. And there's the second one of those. So it's a little matching pair that we've got to put a clear coat on as well. Oh, put it around the right way. All right, so that will hopefully...
They are a lovely pair.
They're a lovely pair. Hopefully we'll get that one finished and then she can do what she wants with those. But that's good. That's waiting. Now, I reckon we've gassed for long enough. I've padded out for long enough. It's still a little bit liquid, but we'll crack on anyway. So the white, I'm going to do a couple of waves on each and show you what happens. So little pour right on the joint, right on the edge. Be brave. Where it meets. And I'll come right back here. Remember, this is your first wave, this one. Do a little wave at the back. There's a little bit, oh, don't really want to do that. There is a little bit left in there, but pop that to one side. I was going to say I would wait now for 5 or 10 minutes, but we're not going to.
We potentially got a couple of questions.
Ask away.
If we can go with them, if you want to wait a couple of minutes. Let me just find them. Frederick's asked, can you add more resins without any witness lines, if that makes sense?
More resin. So after this, I'd let this dry overnight, and then we'll do another wave covering the whole lot. And so on and so on. So you can see that my first wave here from yesterday, we've done another wave on the top. So you still get to see underneath that because it's a transparent resin. So you get that real seasidey, real ocean sort of effect going on, which is really quite cool.
Yeah. You have to let us know if he's answered that the way you intended, Frederick. Maria's asked, can Colwin do a beach view from the side rather than the top, i.e. the waves crashing?
Oh no, there's the advanced resin techniques going on here. I don't know. Could I? I don't
Could
know.
you?
I don't know.
You could have a go.
We'll have a go.
Maybe.
Yeah, from the side. Wow.
From the side. And then, so good morning from Canada. My name is Pam, and my phone died this morning, so I have to use my husband's. What brand of resin are you working with?
This is Entropy resin. Entropy. Where's the Entropy? Oh, let's have a look on the Entropy. I've used all sorts of resins. The difference that you get with different resins, and they all work, they all do the same thing. The difference that you get is this effect, this capsulization, another big word. But this sort of effect, when the bubbles pop, you get that real sort of open of the, where it's sort of like expand out into little mini bores. This works really well to the point where normally all the advice says use a hot air gun to do that. So a gas hot air gun to do that. I found it works really well with just spreading with one of these. In fact, the hot air gun sometimes can disperse those marks and make it a little bit wishy-washy. Everyone is slightly different. I already think this is going to work quite well, but let's have a go. So a little bit, no heat coming from this. This is just the air, and I'm just going to push those waves back. Yeah, that's quite cool. I'll leave that for a minute. I'll show you why. Let's just do this one. Push them back. Same with the front. Push them back. Less is more, as they say. Less is more. I will add a little bit of heat, and let's see if we can get any of that capsulization done. What shall I do it on? Let's do it on this one. It's already starting to open. It was quite cool. You can see those little bubbles. There, well, you see that everything popped then. There we are. Look at that opening up now. You can see those. This is really quite cool. You can see this little, like, I don't know, it's like almost like a decaying leaf where it sort of opens up. There's little tiny veins that are now creeping in. This one in particular is really cool. This is the dark, the second wave, don't forget. This is still quite, it's quite pale compared to this one because we're now layering up the colors. But like that, this is opening up now as well. This is looking awesome. And then once you've done that, don't touch it. Walk away. Close the door. Come back tomorrow. Because if you keep looking, you'll start fiddling. And the minute you start fiddling with it, it all goes wrong. So just literally now walk away and go and have a cup of tea. All right.
Maria says very Bob Ross.
Very. I haven't got the hair for Bob Ross, unfortunately. I was in Tennessee last year with Nick touring around the Smokies, and it's a big Bob Ross area. I guess that's where he came from. But there's posters and key rings and everything about Bob Ross. Still very nice. If you're stressed out and you want to just relax, put one of his shows on and just watch him paint. You'll relax immediately just from his voice.
I'm too young for Bob Ross.
Oh, you need to educate yourself.
I do know who he is from Ben, but I'm too young. I've never watched it.
It's so relaxing. There we are. This one's really awesome. They will all go to that clear glass state once you put the clear coat over the top. 24 hours and you can do that. No further treatment apart from just air. Blow the bubbles out with a bit of heat. But this is going some really cool designs now. One thing I would say is wherever you do your casting, your colors, make sure that that surface is level. And again, I've made this mistake before. In fact, one of the first ones I've done, the table wasn't quite level. It's on a slight slant, and all of the colors looked as though, well, it looked as though it was on a slant. They were all sort of coming away, washing away. So if you want it to stay as we've left it there, then it has to be a flat and level surface. All right. The material that we've got here is just a bin liner that's been cut down and laid out. Bin liner seems to be a great material because once dry, that resin, the waste resin, can just peel away, and you can use it time and time again. So yeah,
it's very satisfying pulling the dried resin off. It's like peeling off PVA glue off your skin in like
it's so really satisfying. Cool. It's lovely to work. There, have we got any more questions for the minute? I'm trying to think of tips that I can give you when it comes to this.
I think that's it.
It's a real fun thing, isn't it? I really enjoy it. I have seen, and we're using a Pell timber here. I have seen this done on dark timbers. Looks equally as awesome. So experiment, play around, have a look on the internet, see what's out there. You know what to do. You know the regular searches and things like that. All of those I'm not going to name, but yeah, just have a play. What I would do now, you've seen first coat or first wave, second wave, clear coat over the top, but you can go third wave, fourth wave, as much as you want, really. The clear coat does the job and self level. So there we are. That's the entropy resins, the entropy colors, and a little bit of mixing technique. Yes, we got a few more questions.
So Alan's just come. Sorry, not Alan, is it? It's Pam. She's just come in and asked, what's the working time with this resin?
Working time, they say, for doing everything that we've done here, for the clear coat, I would say it's around about half an hour, if I'm honest. I like to leave this 20 minutes to half an hour once mixed before you do the blowing of it. And then pretty much once the hour's gone, you can't touch it. It won't act in the same manner that we've just made it act there. And then re-coating in about 24 hours. Touch dry within about 36 hours. But don't just put your hands on it, just double check, touch a small area or a bit of the waste just to make sure.
Cool. And one from Callum has just come in. Have you ever coated a clear coating of resin to finish a hollow form?
No, I haven't. No, I know what you're thinking, Callum, but the trouble is with resin, and this goes back to Maria's question earlier, that countertop resin is great because it's a flat surface, but it's a little bit like water. It will run off. So you need to, whatever you're doing, it'll have to be several coats of that resin. So a clear coat first. And I've done it on fishing lures. I've done using epoxy resin on fishing lures, and that works. But to start with, and I use a very fast curing resin for that. Keep it spinning at a very slow speed until it starts to go tacky dry, and that works fine. So I would get it warm. Don't heat it. Don't get it really, really hot, but get the resin warm. Have the room temperature quite warm. Put your first coat on by brush first, and let that start to go tack dry, but keep it moving. Would be the best advice I can give you there. Then wait for that to fully cure before you put the next coat on, and so on. So yeah, to further answer your question, Maria, that's another bit of advice. It needs to be either moving or a flat surface.
Sorry, is that something you could potentially use the UV creating resin with?
Yeah, exactly. So when we're making rings, for instance, using a UV resin, if you're encapsulating things like we've just done, like the opals, if you're trying to encapsulate those, using the UV resin with UV light will dry whilst you're actually going around the ring. It's that quick. It's 10 to 15 seconds most of the time. So yeah, on something that's got a surface, a radiated surface, then the UV would work well.
And Frederick's just come in asking, do you monitor the temperature in order to ascertain the best viscosity?
No, I don't. But again, you go online, there's a particular company, I can't remember the name. I look at so many videos, I can't remember names. But their business is making big resin tables. And their drying table, their working table, actually has got a cooler fans underneath to keep it as cool as possible. So their bubbles can come out, and it takes days and days and days for that to fully dry. So remember that the cooler the ambient temperature, the longer it will take to set. can be a good thing because that will allow your bubbles to come out. If you want it to dry quickly, and what we're just talking about is resin countertops and radial surfaces, then you need to warm it a little bit. But when I say warm it, I don't mean blowtorch it until it dries. That won't work. It'll catch light before you do that. So nice warm room to make it dry quicker.
Lovely. And Pam's asking, does this resin have UV inhibitors?
To stop it from yellowing? Yes, it does. It says so on. I say yes because it says so on the tin. Yes. You're all good? Excellent. Well, thank you ever so much, everybody. What we'll do is so I'm back at live in 2 weeks. I think we'll get these out and show. You're going to have to remind me of this stuff. We'll get these out and show you what they're like finished as well. So that'd be quite nice to get them all out at the same time. The clock will be done by then. And I'll get these two clear coated and we'll look at them all. Yes, another question.
Had 2 questions come in.
Go for it.
They're kind of both the same question. One is, is this good for deep pours? The other one's, do you have to use deep pour resin to make vases and bowls with other material? Totally different question.
Yeah. So the resin, you get the resin. The resin is resin. The hardener is 2 different types. So fast hardener for this type of thing, slow hardener for deep pour. So the resin is the same, but the hardener is what's different in this instance. That's not the case of every single epoxy resin. That's the case of this one. The resin remains the same. The hardener is the difference. Okay. And you can't go as thick as you want to go. It's not an endless thing. Usually, from my experience, a casting resin will cast up to about 50 to 60 mil, no more than that. If you go more, you'll get too much heat buildup. So you'll have to do it in several layers, sort of thing, if you want to go really, really thick. Or cast flat is the other way of doing it, rather than deep, if you know what I mean by that. But yes, so that's it. Hardener is different. Epoxy is the same.
So so the next question was, do you have to use deep pour resins to make vases and bowls with other materials in them to turn on the lathe? So you would suggest either doing it flat or in multiple sections? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as long as there's no one area that's bigger than the maximum casting thickness, so like 50 to 60, then we're good. We're all good. So if you're going to say, for instance, fill a tub like that with pine cones, then add your resin into it, that's fine, because most of that is pine cones. If you're just filling that with resin, that won't work. That'll heat up too much and you'll get a failure. All right. There we are. Thank you very much, everybody. Give us a thumbs up if you liked it. If you hang around to see all of it, give us a thumbs up. Like what you see is really, really important to us. Don't forget to hit the notifications button if you want to see more videos like this one. Thank you ever so much. I guess I'll see you next time. See you in a couple of weeks. Bye.